Hi, welcome to this video which is on small molecules and polymers. Okay, so get today's date and title down and then we'll move on. Okay, so we've got various different diagrams here. What do they have in common and what is different? You might point out that they all have covalent bonds as a similarity. In terms of differences, you can see that the ones in the top right hand corner are all small individual molecules, while the two other sets of diagrams are all much larger, giant molecules, or giant structures rather. Okay, so here's another one. What do these substances have in common? We've got carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide. Okay, these are all gases under normal conditions. What else do they have in common? Well, they are all harmful to human health or the climate. Carbon monoxide and sulfur dioxide are toxic. Carbon dioxide can cause suffocation. They all consist of small molecules with covalent bonds within the molecules and much weaker intermolecular forces between the molecules. And the weak intermolecular forces explain why they are gases even at low temperatures. Okay, so here is another look at some covalent molecules. The covalent bonds within the molecules are strong, but the bonds between the molecules are weak and easy to break. And that's what means that they have a low boiling point and a low melting point. So we've got strong bonds within the molecules. They are not broken during melting or boiling. And we've got weak bonds between the molecules, which are broken easily during melting and boiling. Okay, take a look at this little video clip. Okay, so what I've got here is some examples of some simple covalent molecules. So this one is nitrogen. We've got two nitrogen atoms. Each of them has three gaps in their outer shell, so they need to share three pairs of electrons. So you can see there this triple bond between them. We've got NH3, one nitrogen, three hydrogens. That makes something called ammonia. And again, the nitrogen has three gaps. Each hydrogen only has one, which is why you can only get three hydrogens to the one nitrogen. We've got some oxygen here, two gaps in the outer shell for oxygen, so that forms a double bond. Oxygen with two hydrogens, H2O. You should all know what that is. Again, another small covalent molecule, and then hydrogen, H2, there, single gap, one shared pair of electrons. Okay, now for all of these, you'll see that they've only got bonds, strong bonds within their molecule. Beyond their molecule, they don't interact. So that means that they've got very low melting points and boiling points. And it means that because there aren't any charged particles, they cannot conduct electricity. Okay, so what could they ask you? Well, the common exam paper question, explain why ammonia, NH3, is a gas at room temperature. So pause the video and have a go at that. Right, you should have said that it has a low boiling point. You could say that it is formed from simple covalent molecules which have weak forces between each molecule, or you could say weak intermolecular bonds instead. And you could say that because these forces are weak, they require very little energy to break, and that's why it boils at a low temperature. Okay, let's have a look at these different substances. We've got their boiling points and melting points. We need to work out whether they're solid, liquid, or gas at room temperature. Pause the video and have a go. Okay, room temperature is about 20 degrees, so that's between the melting and boiling points on ethanol, so it's a liquid. It is above the boiling point on butane, which means it must be a gas. It is between melting point and boiling point on pentane, so that one is a liquid. For bromine, again, it's between the melting point and the boiling point, so it's a liquid. Same thing for mercury. Now for ammonia, it's above the boiling point and the melting point, so that means it's a gas. and the same for methane. Then cesium, it's below both the melting point and the boiling point, which means it must be a solid. And the same for carbon. Now, if we go through and have a look at what type of structures these are, ethanol uses covalent bonds, butane, pentane, and bromine all use covalent bonds. Mercury is a metal, so that has metallic bonding. Ammonia and methane are both covalent. Cesium is a metal, and carbon has covalent bonds. Now, if you look at this dividing line where we get the solids, everything above that that's covalently bonded is a small molecule. Okay, so the small molecules are very much associated with those weak bonds. Okay, another thing that we have in simple covalent molecules is that they are not good conductors of electricity. That's because there are no charged particles, i.e. delocalized electrons or ions, that can carry the flow of the charge. Okay, let's have a look at a video about making polymers.
Okay, so what I've got here is a load of ethene molecules, okay? They are simple covalent molecules. You see they're individual, they're not attached to anything else. Again, that means that the properties they have are that they have low melting and boiling points and they're not good conductors of electricity. Because of this double bond, we can do something with these ethene molecules though. We can do a process called polymerization. Okay, if we break the double bond, which is easier said than done on some of these, we can make these ethenes into a single chain. They can join together as a chain. Okay, so I join those up and you can see that they're now no longer small molecules. They are what we call a polymer. And a polymer is what you get when you get lots of small parts, small identical parts, joining together to make a chain. And generally we call our polymers poly, whatever the name of the individual bit is. We call the individual bits monomers. So the monomer in this case is ethene, that's what we started out with. And so this is polyethene, or polythene, you might have heard it as. Okay, so this makes a long chain. And that means that it raises the boiling and melting points and changes the property because we've turned those double bonds into single bonds and joined them together to make one very, very long chain.
Okay, so here we've got an ethene monomer being turned into a polymer of polyethene. Okay, so we can draw that as a long chain, but we can also draw it as a repeat unit in big square brackets with an N. So you need to be able to name polymers if you know what the monomer is called. And it's really, really easy to do that. For example, propene turns into polypropene. Okay, so we just put poly on the front of it. Butene becomes polybutene. If we had a load of oens and we stuck them together, what we would get is polyoen. Okay, so you just put poly in front of whatever the base unit is that's repeating. Okay, so here we have some nice long polymer chains. There are many intermolecular forces present between the polymer chains. Okay, so with these arrows we can see those representing all those forces that are acting. Because the chains are long, we get lots of forces. So the intermolecular forces are much stronger than if we had a simple covalent molecule. Polymers are solids at room temperature and have higher melting and boiling points than their monomers. Okay, polymer chains have long molecules side by side. They have weak bonds between them, but there are quite a lot of them. Where we've got cross-linking, the polymer chains are chemically joined in place by covalent bonds. Okay, so those are much more strongly joined. The polymer molecules can't slide over each other so easily, so it makes them tough and less flexible. So if we've got a normal polymer chain, there are weak intermolecular forces, low melting point, and flexible and stretchy. For cross-links, they have strong covalent bonds between them, a high melting point, and they are more rigid and tough whilst being flexible.